Welcome back, guys. Episode
4.
No, 5.
What?
It's 5. Episode 5.
I've lost track of time.
Let's see. The first episode we talked about what Oblivious Oblates were,
I guess I am oblivious.
and then we skipped talking about that in the second and third. So, and probably the fourth. So let's talk about why we chose the name Oblivious Oblates before we get into our discussion today, which I think is going to be a really good one.
Well, you can describe oblivious by saying clueless and bumbling and totally not understanding anything, but doing it anyway.
So we're bringing you the show from St. Gregory's Abbey in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and we're called the Oblivious Oblates because we are both part of the Oblate formation program here at St. Gregory's. We are novices, so we have no idea what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
We're making it up as we go, but we want to invite you guys to come out and join us here at the Abbey for Mass, for prayers, for all those things. And, there's hopefully there'll be a lot of things for our families to do. So,
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Oblates?
There is an Oblate Day coming up this April 16th. It's the Sunday after
Is it 16th?
Easter.
Okay.
Yep, it's Divine Mercy Sunday.
Nice.
So if you're interested or want to have any questions, if you have any questions or are like merely interested.
We'll put a link in the description so you can go right to the Mission Monk site and go ahead and
Register.
register. That's the word I was about to say apply, but it's not really apply, but it could be apply.
Well, you can come and
Not the first
see.
time.
You
Come
don't
and
have
see.
to be an oblate the first time you come to Oblate Day.
Come over, check it out, meet some of the other oblates, meet some of the other oblate novices, and definitely meet some of the monks. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I got a joke for you.
What's the joke?
Why did the chicken go to the gym?
At the end of this episode, we're going to tell you why the chicken went to the gym.
We're starting to figure this
Yeah, we
out.
are figuring it out. So, the other day I was looking for avocados.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Kiara.
Okay.
So I was teaching her how to look at fruit because sometimes we get fruit, like we got the honeydew melon. Is it in the picture? We got the honeydew melon the other day and it wasn't ready because you have to, it's got to be ripe. And if you get it before it's ripe, it's going to be really sour. If you get it when it's too ripe, it's either going to be way too sweet or just gross.
Yeah.
So we started talking about how you pick fruit. And for me, it's a little different than most men. So I'm an exception, and so is Rachel. But if you wanted to take this challenge, when we talk about relationships with men and women, next time you're at the grocery store with your buggy, look at how the men and the women select their produce. And I bet you will find that most men will look, they'll see a pretty piece of fruit, put it in their basket, and continue on. And most women will pick up the fruit, spin it around, look at it, smell it sometimes, squeeze it, do all kinds of things to it. There's like 8 things that she's going to do before she puts that fruit into the basket. I think it's an important thing that we need to teach our teenage girls, but we need to teach our boys that, you know what, sometimes the fruit looks good, but when you cut it open, it's not ready. Or it was ready a long time ago, it's not ready
And you
now.
missed your window. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about the differences in things like that too, like where some people are more regimented because I'm not the fruit handler. I don't know how to tell whether or not a cantaloupe is good because I let that one take care of it while I do the others on the list. But I'm one of those people that just kind of goes for the fruit that I know that I don't have to like mess around with.
Right.
Is like bananas. They look good.
They're yellow, they're good.
Yeah.
They're brown, they're bad.
Yes, they're pretty easy to figure out. So, how is that relating to kind of like a faith life? There's in our Catholic Church, we have so much diversity in it that we're able to make those comparisons. And I actually just heard another discussion about it the other day that talked about the differences between an Eastern church and a Western Roman Catholic church. So there's the Western Roman, and then there's the Eastern church that has a whole bunch of other schisms, and we can put up a map for that.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Maybe.
Here?
Stop doing that. It's really hard to do that. Somewhere, maybe on the whole screen.
Okay. Anyways, so you can see when you look at it.
Before you go on, since I'm still laughing and I missed that first line, if you know somebody that would like to do some producing, then volunteer and help us out.
To put it right here.
Yeah, so we can put it right where we want it. All those mistakes that you see in the video are my, I wouldn't say inability, just my inexperience. So as we go on, I think they're going to get better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So,
in the Eastern Church, there's these architecture is surrounded with dome shapes and curves, and the incense goes through everything.
It's almost like those upside down hearts. It's kind of always the way I kind of thought of it.
Yeah.
Like in Ukraine and also like in Kiev.
Right. And even the chanting you have that goes in and out of itself, and so it's more of a breathing than it is. This is when we sing, this is when we pray. And then in the Western Church, it's much easier to come into when you don't know what's going on, because there's a regimen to follow.
Right.
And so you can learn the rules a lot easier, and you can know where you're at if you get distracted or something like that. It's really easy to follow along.
Let me get stuck.
And it's the different...
Thank you. The Western and Eastern Church are different. Do you want to start over? Or do you want to...
From the beginning?
You don't have to start over from the beginning.
I don't know where to start over.
Okay. Let's just go.
Okay. Anyway, so we were saying that, I was saying that the Western Church or the Roman Church is really easy, because you can go to any Roman Catholic church and know the format, whereas when you go to a Byzantine or a Ukrainian, it's a little harder to get into the rhythm of it, and you can tell when you go to like different kind of businesses, you can tell whether a woman runs it or a man runs it by how it's set up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily the way it's decorated. You can definitely tell when a man decorates a business trying to make it look like a woman decorated it. I can definitely see that. And I think I can see the reverse too. Yeah. Where a woman's like, oh, let's make this really masculine, you know? And you got the pink leather.
Right. Right. Pink leather's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, I'm not knocking pink leather, but I've seen rooms that were supposed to be masculine that were definitely not masculine.
Right. Yeah. So, hey, you got a really cool shirt.
I do have a really cool shirt. We have 2 sponsors that we're going to be talking about today. I'm not sure I do have in my pocket.
In your pocket.
You're
carrying it around because it's so handy.
It is amazing.
And so necessary.
And
did you show that to Father today?
Oh, I didn't show it to Father. I just walked up here. But we will show it to Father. But he doesn't have a beard right now.
That's okay.
Maybe when he sees how fabulous my beard is, he'll purchase some Catholic balm, Catholic beard balm. This is made by a friend of ours, Tony. He makes this stuff. He packages it. He sells it. He's given us a promo code. So if you want to get some beard balm and make your beard look beautiful,
it makes it a lot softer.
Oh yeah,
and it doesn't smell bad.
And it doesn't itch anymore. This stuff smells like incense. So if you're Catholic, I love this stuff. It's amazing. Yeah. But there's a promo code.
Yay!
10% off if you use the promo code Oblivious. That's easy, right?
Right there. See it?
But then also in our comments or in our description, there's going to be a link to get these wonderful shirts. Save the Humans,
yeah.
Life Bear.
It doesn't show the whole thing, so hold on.
Yeah, we could put a picture up. But
there we go.
There you go.
This is my favorite romantic Catholic t-shirt, and I've wanted it forever.
I have to flip these so you can read them. This one says Love Hurts. But these are made by a company called Romantic Catholic. Good friends of ours as well, Ruben, and he just had another baby. Yeah, he's like us, a whole bunch of children all in all. But
Ruben and Jenny.
Yeah, so congratulations. I can't name all their kids. I don't remember how many it is now. Ruben, if you want, put them in the comments. But we're definitely praying for you guys today. And we're excited to have some more shirts in the future. You guys will see that Romantic Catholic has sent over to us. And we have our merch store now.
Yeah.
So that's down.
Those will be fun.
Lots of stuff. So we've already got 3 shirts in our merch store. So go check that out.
Yeah, those will be in the comments too.
So
our son the other day did something really cool that has kind of started a little tradition that him and I have gone back and forth on. But he, at night, one night, he came up to me and said, I want you to give me 3 facts on the Bread of Life discourse. Yeah. So little old theologian, Mommy, put her hat back on in the middle of the night and did my 3 facts for the Bread of Life discourse. And in the morning, he was so
Are you going to share those? Are you going to share the facts that...
Did I write them in this book? I'm not sure if it was this book. I may have. Okay, you can read them.
No,
have you read them yet?
I did read them.
Oh, you have read them?
So these were approved by our 8-year-old.
Yes, these are approved.
3 facts. And so number one fact. People were searching for Jesus because they got bread last time. Not because of what he was actually saying. He needed them to refocus. So, yeah, a lot of people just show up because they're getting fed, or they'll do something because they're getting a free t-shirt for giving blood or signing up for a bank loan or whatever.
Right. And then I don't need any more OBI t-shirts. So, well, that's a blood institute. I don't need any more blood t-shirts, so I'm not going to donate.
Yeah.
Like, what brings you back?
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, yeah, I don't need any more blood t-shirts, but I can donate these blood t-shirts, or I can bring them downtown. There's always somebody that wants them.
Or I can leave the t-shirts there and still donate.
Let's refocus. It's more than the food.
Yeah.
You're not going to feed you all that time, all the time.
Yeah.
Number 2, Jesus will not reject anyone that comes to him. We must open the door and invite him in. He will not come himself uninvited.
Yeah.
I love that image. That's my my favorite image of one of my favorite images, a lot of them, of Jesus is where he's knocking on the door. You can look it up, Jesus knocking on the door. You'll see the older images, and the unique part of that is that there's no doorknob on the outside, so the door has to be opened from the inside, and it represents our heart. And if we don't open the door and invite Christ in, he won't walk through the door.
Right. So. And there was a really cool depiction of that in a movie we saw recently. He was coming to a woman's home, and in the day, the woman invited you into the home, and she was just she was so enamored with Jesus that she just stared, and he was patient, and he was kind, and he waited, and then her son said, "Ima," which is mom, and she goes, "Oh, where are my manners?" and then proceeded to do what she needed to do. But yeah, he will sit and wait.
Beautiful scene in the movie The Chosen, or the series The Chosen. We're only on season 1 episode. I think we've just gotten through the wedding feast of Cana. Beautiful series. So, not a sponsor, so
not a sponsor.
but cool. And the third, post-discourse, the disciples talked about how difficult it is, and many left. Not left and right, but left. They took off. They bounced. The 12 that remained were questioned by Jesus if they wanted to leave as well.
So he invited them to leave. He said, you're welcome to. I understand this may not be something that you want to do. I understand that it's hard, but it's something that I am doing. And if you want to follow me, you can.
It's a beautiful John chapter 6. That's it. Just read John chapter 6. The whole thing's right there. And it's beautiful, and that's it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just read it. You read it yourself. It's awesome.
I gave you kind of the beginning and the end. You can fill up the middle how you want.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful illustration of how Christ shared his love.
Yeah. And it talks to us about how we choose the faith, and we choose to walk in what we do, and we choose to make the vows that we make, and we choose to make the promises that we do, and it's not something that's put on us.
Right. There are some vows that we take that we don't understand, and so let's just start with them. The first vow that we take as people is baptism, and it's not even us taking the vows; it's our parents and it's our godparents.
Yes.
And so that's a vow, and that vow is restated later constantly in our church. But it's that the baptismal promises are restated constantly in our church because those are important. But the
multiple times throughout the year. It's not just one and done.
Right. So we make that baptismal promise multiple times, especially during Easter time. So
I mean, it is one and done. I go back. It is baptism is one and
I was
done.
going to say we only get baptized once in the Catholic Church.
Yes, we remember our baptism multiple times throughout the year.
So if you were to
Just
compare
to be clear.
that to a church that would have multiple baptisms, because some people would use baptism in the way the Catholic Church uses confession. It's a time where we
clean
need to be
yourself
washed. So it's a difference in how we celebrate our faith. In ours, we go to confession and we are absolved of our sins and we can move forward. In the Protestant church, in some Protestant churches, they'll get rebaptized in that same aspect, or in that same, what's that word? The same
Spirit.
in the same spirit. So, come on out and check it out. And especially during Easter time, the priest or the deacon will be splashing you with all kinds of water. It's great. But it's, the church is always like, this is real, this is real, this is real. This is a symbol. So, and that's it. It's with that baptism water that goes during Easter time. That's the symbol of our baptism. And the prayer is our confirmation of our baptismal promises. And we call confirmation that. It's a confirmation of those promises that our godparents made for us, hopefully.
Right.
So.
Godparents and parents.
Yeah, I'm all geeking out, sorry. So then you get older, and then I took an oath when I was left high school, when I graduated.
You're skipping a few.
Well, I don't know which one. Well, I'm talking about our oaths, our promises.
Oh, okay.
Because I talked about confirmation.
Okay.
I didn't really go into.
You didn't really, but that's.
But
okay.
I mentioned it. That's the time that we actually reaffirmed that in the church. But then I was saying there's secular oaths too.
Yeah.
So the oath when you raise your hand to join the military, or you raise your hand to join the Peace Corps or the Red Cross, whatever, you're going to have to make this promise. And 17,
when you sign on for a job, you make a
right,
promise.
I'm going to be a good employee. You know?
Yeah.
But we don't really know what we're committing to. I mentioned the mortgage in a previous episode, but when you join the military, you've got a kid that's 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. I was 20. I was a little older when I went in because I was not very smart in school. But even just those 2 years wasn't enough for me to understand the implications of promising my life to something that could or couldn't happen. You may stay stateside, you may go into combat, there's so many things that could happen, but you're promising whatever happens will happen. And we hesitate to do that, make that same promise to God. Just here I am, whatever happens, happens, and we'll deal with it. It's a lot easier because his ultimate goal is to love you.
Yeah.
Whereas in the military, the ultimate goal is for you to be a fighter. A warrior.
So this image just came to me. It kind of sounded like you were sitting yourself down in a roller coaster and saying, here we go, take me.
Let's go.
Instead of standing next to God with a staff and saying, let's walk together.
Yeah. There's a big difference between a vow and a oath. I don't know. In my view. So an oath is, even though it's a promise, for that oath, there was, we always say that military guys don't have an expiration on our oath because we don't ever have a de-oathing. But there are dates that we're committed to that oath. I'm like, I don't have to go and do something after those dates. But during those dates, that means a lot, especially for someone who is a faithful person. When I was in, the majority of soldiers were Hispanic and Catholic. That was like the majority of what was being recruited. And they were very faithful people. So that culture kind of existed within the military for me when I was in. It started to change a little bit as, and every generation of soldiers is going to have the majority. So that was my experience though. Lots of leadership that were Hispanic and Catholic, and we just knew that because we went to the same church.
Right.
So.
Yeah. The next big promise, oath, vow.
College loans.
Yeah, you sign on for college loans.
You signed up for college loans right after I signed up for, so let's go there.
And I was still paying. I'm still paying. Who else is still paying? Raise your hand.
Well, I don't have to pay.
Yeah, he's not. He's
done.
He's all done. But
I paid more than my education was worth, though.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to my colleges.
Okay. So college loans and then mortgages, and mortgages are mortgages, and we
hopefully
refer to
mortgage can go either way. You can go pre-married, after married. That's a good idea to have a mortgage before you're married.
It is, or at least have paid rent by yourself for over a year.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings us to
wedding vows,
and or
seminarian vocations, any kind of vow that you're making, but we cannot speak to seminary other than the fact that I heard someone bring it up the other day, and I never really compared the two. But the two, let me get my mouth to catch up with my brain here. The two sacraments of service are holy orders and matrimony. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying this to complain, because it does need to be complained about, because it does need to be addressed. Seminarians go through over 8 years of formation.
8 years.
8 years of formation. And they write papers, and they have counseling, and they have all of this time to really kind of get their head around what they're going to be promising, what their vows mean.
Right.
Tell me how long your engagement lasted. And tell me what you did during formation between you got married, between when the ring went on and you said I do.
And we're not talking about what you did extra, because Rachel and I did extra.
Lots of extra. As ministers, we did extra.
Yeah, we did extra. But the normal person that goes into the majority of churches are going to get 1 or 2 meetings with the priest. They're going to take a test. They're going to discuss it. They might do 1 retreat. And then in 6 months they get married. There's that waiting period. The waiting period is important. Mm-hmm. I think it should be more than 6 months.
It's essential.
Yeah, it should be more than 6 months.
6 months is a minimum, for sure.
Got the kids screaming. So what is it? Today we keep talking about... it's too distracting.
Then take a minute.
Yeah, I'll take a minute. What is he doing?
He was just saying, whoo. I didn't think...
6 months minimum to prepare for marriage. And it's absolutely not enough. And
No.
Yeah, because...
it doesn't talk about children, like, for real, unless you have some already.
Right.
They talk about there's just a lot that's missed.
Well, I take that back. They do talk about it.
If you...
it's in the thing, and there's some discussion that takes place, but to really go into it, and you can't expect a priest to be able to explain to you how to be a mom, or to me how to be a dad, no more than I can explain to a priest how to be a priest. I can make suggestions. Mm-hmm. I can say, why do you do things this way, so I can explain it to my kids. Mm-hmm. Father Simeon just explained a very small concept with a lot of words to my son. I only caught about half of it, so it's my responsibility to make sure he understands what we learned just now.
Yeah.
And I could have just answered in like 2 or 3 questions, or 2 or 3, easy. But now I get to delve into it. That's the beauty of hanging out with these guys. I'm telling you. And I was just happened to be walking by. You just come out here, pray, and they'll just be walking by.
Yeah, come meet a monk.
Meet a monk. So I even told him, I said, we're going to talk about our wedding vows today for our channel. And he kind of looked like, that's kind of cool.
So what we thought would be the best thing is to... go over what we promised to each other, because in the Catholic wedding, the Catholic sacrament of matrimony,
not marriage.
It is not done by a priest. It is not performed by a priest. It is performed by the two that are making the promise, and the priest blesses the marriage. Blesses the union of the two. So it's not the priest putting the two together, it's the two coming together and the priest blessing it.
And the difference between marriage and matrimony, if I could explain it, a marriage brings 2 things together. They're married together. It could be chains, something very strong. It could be ropes can be married together. Oxen could be married together. Matrimony welds it together. So once it's welded together, those 2 substances become one, so they can't be taken apart. Whereas a marriage, you can have a divorce. Mm-hmm. They could be, that can be dissolved. A marriage can be dissolved. A matrimony cannot be dissolved because that is a vow and a promise before God. Welded, just like you would weld a trailer or a truck or something. Welding is permanent. You can never, ever break it apart without it being broken. It will look ugly. It will look ragged, tattered. Yeah. It will never be the same. It could be re-welded and sanded and stuff, but it will never be the same as it was, which is the biggest difference between marriage and matrimony. So many people argue, I think this person should get married, this person should... Anybody can get married. It's a contract. Marriage is a contract. Matrimony is a vow, a commitment, and a sacrament.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're constantly looking in the eye of the person that you promised.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm doing it now.
I mean, you wake up to them, you go to sleep to them, and that promise is staring you in the face. And sometimes you don't even want to see yourself in the, you don't even want to see your own self. And then that person is staring at you, expecting you to hold up your end of the bargain.
Be awesome. You got to do all the things you promised every day.
Yes.
Every day.
And so it's the understanding of knowing each other's flaws and being able to accommodate for them or discuss them or work on them together and I shouldn't say or, I should say and for all of them. Discuss them, work on them together, accommodate for them, everything you can do. Same thing you would do with your children. Another new, really cool concept, not really new, but verbalized concept to me that was brought up, and I'll go back to Matrimony, but a children's counselor told me one day that they said, when parents come in and say, my kid's this, my kid's this, my kid's this, and I won't stand for it, I tell them before they even walk in the room, do a backflip into my door, and I won't accept anything less. And the parents evidently ultimately say, well, I can't do a backflip. And it's like, well, I won't accept anything less. You must do the backflip before you enter my door. And back and forth, back and forth. Well, the psychologist said, well, try a front roll then. Let's try that. It's easier. Yeah, it's a little easier. You can go in through a front roll. And it's the concept of we are expecting these things from our children. Yeah. We are expecting development from our children, and we won't accept anything less. And to be able to step back and say, well, wait a minute, maybe they're not in the same place of my head or where I've gotten. It could be the same when you are, I'm going on a tangent here.
That's okay.
It can be the same when you're giving big news to somebody. You've sat there and processed it and thought about what your answers would be, what the implications are for that, and all of those things. And when you get ready to bring it to somebody, they're just getting hit with it maybe for the first time.
And if it's something that involves them, that's a big shake.
Yeah. Yeah. And so approaching those things and being able to have the space for the reaction that you had when you were figuring it out and for them to figure things out too. So yeah, all of that to be said, things like that need to happen in the breadth of a relationship. And to not know about that going into it and just expecting a marriage to be like dual service to each other.
It seems like it really is a business contract today. It's like, all right, let's get married. Okay, you're going to do the dishes. I'm going to do the laundry. And that's what it's kind of evolved into over the years. It's really sad because it's not a business partnership. It's a rethinking of yourself. It's, if you're not together and you're not molded as one, it's not you do this, you do this. It's we have to accomplish this. We have to get the laundry done. We have to get the dishes done or whatever that might be.
We have to change the baby's diaper.
Yeah. Sometimes it's definitely we, when I was a single dad for that short time before we were married. So I remember, and I won't tell you which kid it was because I honestly don't remember, but I remember having run to the bathroom with the kid because they were just so full of stuff. And,
well, just this last weekend we had to do it.
But that was, you had help. And so when you have help, the life changes so much. Raising a child changes so much.
And that wasn't even ours.
Yeah. But one of the things that changes is when you see a child is you want them to be better than you. And you want to give them every opportunity to be better than you, but you don't want them to be spoiled.
Right.
With our kids, they're very smart. We're really blessed. They read a lot, so they're very intelligent. And sometimes when they're passionate about something, because of their intelligence, it comes across as they're older than they are, or they're smarter than they are. But then we forget they're 7, they're 8, they're 2, because we're having a conversation that I can have with a high school or I can have with a college person because they're so passionate about that. And because their vocabulary is so big, it sounds like they're older than they are. And that puts more emphasis on you got to do this right. Then when you see them compared to their peers, it's like, oh, I'm really hard on my kids. They need to chill, they need to take a breath, and maybe we don't need to be doing dissertations on the Bread of Life discourse. But we have to get them passionate about things that we're passionate about. If we're excited about learning about God and drawing closer to God, they're going to be excited about it. They're going to learn their prayers. And it's like, why is Dad kneeling? Dad doesn't kneel to anyone. But we just walked into this building and he knelt. That's huge for a young man to see his father do. Mm-hmm. So as a dad, it's my responsibility now to do those motions and to show them that the King of everything is right there and waiting for us. So.
Right there. So in the great wide history of the year 2008 of our Lord.
Oh dear Lord, what happened in 2008?
We repeat these things.
The housing crash happened in 2008.
Oh, okay.
Kind of the same thing that's happening right now.
So did OU Texas.
Yeah, OU lost to Texas in 2008.
So we got married, for you Okies, we got married on OU Texas weekend, and some people said that they weren't coming to our wedding because it was during the game. And they lost.
Yeah. Our wedding was during the third quarter.
Yeah.
Like the worst possible time.
Side note.
Anyway.
Anyways, so.
Wait. Just to be clear, in Oklahoma, when it's OU Texas, every venue is free. It's cheap. I mean, you can do anything you want because everybody else is at the game. So churches, everything's available. That's what I meant to say. All the wedding venues are available.
OU Texas is big enough.
Yeah. so if you want to get married that weekend in Oklahoma. You don't have to be from here, but you get some really cool venues.
Yeah, and some priests are available too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So we said these vows. We were able to, when we got married, we were given 3 options on vows. There's the kind of modern version, there's the traditional version, and then there's the create your own. Everybody's kind of highly shunned away from create your own in the Catholic Church because oftentimes it creates editing problems and the priest needs to look at it
and heresy
for heresies and things like that. So it's easier to do one that's already in the book that he has printed. Otherwise, that's extra paper that they need to bring up and mess around at the altar and everything.
And 15 years later, you can look it up.
Yeah,
you don't have to go look for that piece of paper that you wrote down somewhere.
Yeah, we say special vows to each other in lots of other ways. Mm-hmm. That one day, I wanted to say something that meant something that my ancestors and my forefathers were saying. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't say it in the same language as they did, but we said it with the same spirit. Yeah. And what the priest does is he gives a little statement and then you repeat it. Mm-hmm. And so he's kind of helping you guide you through it, which makes it kind of sound like he's telling you to say these things to be wed. And he's not. He's just helping your script.
Here's a little trivia. When you see a priest doing the consecration, they are looking at the book. And Father Shane Tharp, God rest his soul, said that every priest has 2 things to do during consecration. Read what's in black, do what's in red, and change nothing. Which is why they read those, because they want to make sure that we're saying what we mean and we can look back on it and say, this is what we promised.
Yeah. And so it starts out, we'll just go through it. It starts out, there's 3 questions that are posited to the couple that comes together once they're up at the altar together. The first one is the priest asks both people by name. So he would have said William and Rachel. Mm-hmm. Have you come here to enter into marriage without coercion, freely and wholeheartedly? And we reply, either I have or I am. I think I said yes.
I do.
I think I said yes. Because...
Yeah, very loudly.
Yeah.
You were loud.
Are you surprised that I was loud?
You were loud.
Okay, so... Coming into marriage without coercion, freely and wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's self-explanatory, but oftentimes I've been told that I don't explain things enough.
Right. So coercion, what does that look like in marriage? Well, back in the 1900s, back in the before times.
In the 1900s.
In the 1900s. Oh.
Crack.
There used to be something called a shotgun wedding. Mm-hmm. And basically what that meant was a young man got a young woman in a family way. That's the way.
Pregnant.
In a family way.
He got enough sideways in a family way.
And Dad was like,
and they didn't have an auntie to go to.
Right. So this is going to happen now.
Yes.
And we don't really do that anymore because that's not a good idea. We can help people in that situation, but forcing people to get married for the sake of a child, we no longer live in a culture or society that needs to do that because we have resources now that young women didn't have back then. So,
and there are still religions that do arranged marriages.
So, but that wouldn't be coercion as much as that would be
wholeheartedly.
It wouldn't be free.
I don't know. We can't speak to arranged marriages, so we won't. but yeah, that's the first question. So, do both of you come bearing yourself? Like God said, he will not come uninvited. So if you don't come bearing yourself, if you don't come open to the whole possibility of the graces that are being poured upon you during that sacrament, why are you there? Yeah.
For the free toaster.
Oh, the toaster and
all that stuff that's going to be gone in a few years anyway.
The dance at the end.
Dance at the end. It's the cake.
The second
the
question.
Wine, the party.
The dress.
You can say all these things.
The dress.
The dress. The flowers. The blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But after everyone leaves and you're cleaning up the mess at the reception hall,
you're still staring at the person that you made that promise to.
Yeah. And whether you're at the reception hall or on a plane or in a car, whatever it is, you have made this promise that even though everyone celebrated for just a second, goes on forever.
Forever. The second question is, are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live?
See, I can speak to this now and say that no, I was not ready 15 years ago to love and honor this woman like I do today because I honestly didn't know how to love back then. Marriage teaches you to love on earth, and hopefully that brings us closer to God. I like to think that when you're married and you go to heaven, you have to wait before St. Peter for your spouse to make the case for you to enter. Because it's not going to be your case, it's together. And people say you're not husband and wife in heaven, but who else would you be if not one? So we don't live as husband and wife, maybe that's the true matrimony. We're in a different existence, but I think the only person that can open that door for you when you're married is your spouse. And I think we lose sight of that. You know, and it's timeless. If you die today and your spouse dies in 20 years, you're not going to comprehend that.
Right.
And that can still exist because God can see into the hearts.
Yeah. What does 20 years look like when you're still surviving and your spouse is not?
Yeah.
As a chaplain, I get to hear those stories and I get to have the experience of little snippets of stories actually. And I'm in the hospital room for such a small time during the hardest time, but I get to hear where the love is and what people rely on at the very end. Yeah.
I'm comforted in knowing that most people at the end, even if they don't know that they have a relationship they don't know that they have a relationship with God, something has always seemed to click. Like they know there's something better and something more. Yeah. And in that moment, I think God can just say, I love you, because that's what he did. God came to me in a moment that I needed him, and he just said, I love you. And I said, okay. And so here several years later, I'm an Oblivious Oblate.
And how much deeper is your definition of love?
Yeah. I hate that I was born an English speaker because we only have one word to be our sister. I love my sister. I love my friend. I love my girlfriend. I love my wife. I love my mother. We have one word.
I love my cold cut sandwich.
So all those loves are different. There's different types of love. There's godly love. There's spiritual love. There's all those things. So I think we
can do a whole show on love. We'll talk about filial love and agape love and all that
Benny's
stuff.
book.
Sure, we can do that.
We can do Benny's book. Benny's got a book you can read ahead and see if we...
Benny, Pope Benedict XVI.
I was about to say it.
For those of you.
He wrote a book called God is Love. It's a great analysis of love. And, it's really easy to read. You can read it in one night.
Yeah.
So if I would recommend, if you're married, buy a copy, read it together.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll pull our copy out and do it again.
Sure. Loving and honoring each other for as long as you both shall live. Loving is not enough. You have to show honor. I can love and have the best intentions my whole life and still sit on the couch.
See, that's very similar to your military oath.
How?
I'm going to serve as long as I live. Mm-hmm. The only thing is in the military, you're by yourself. So this oath I'm making with a teammate. I'm making with a partner. We're going to love and honor each other as long as we live.
Yeah.
So it's, when you go to the army, it's you.
Yeah.
It's you against everything else. When you're married, it's you two against everything else. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot better, but it's better. Yeah. It's a lot better. It's a lot better.
Maybe as explosive.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But this is said twice in the ceremony. Mm-hmm. So it's posited as a question and it's also given as a statement later on when you profess your vows. So not only are you asked about it, you're also saying it. So you're saying it twice in your profession.
All right, this next one, this is the one that people have an issue with.
Yes,
and so the most important
this is one of the most controversial questions as of late in the United States, I guess.
And probably the one that's ignored the most by Catholics.
That's ignored the most. And it's also something that narrows our acceptability, I guess you could say, in the challenge of being Catholic.
Yeah.
It says, are you prepared to accept children lovingly from God and to bring them up according to the law of Christ and his church? So not only are you going to have kids, will you accept the ones that come to you?
Yep.
And will you raise them up in the church that you are professing your vows in? So, do you trust this church enough to carry on your legacy? It's a pretty heavy question to ask.
It is.
Yeah. Not only are you relying on yourself to give yourself the love, you're relying on your spouse as part of your vow, but then you're also relying on the church, saying this church is going to lead us to heaven.
Yeah, and it makes sense because you've got the husband and the wife, they come together, and a visual sign of their miracle of love is the child. Mm-hmm. So I know that not all parents can be, or not all people can be parents, obviously, but that's the goal. And to be open to life is just as important as actually having the child.
Right.
And I think we forget that. I know that, and it's so long ago, but there was a teacher at our school that was struggling with fertility issues. And she'd been in school for a long time. And one of our more colorful Christian pro-lifers used to badmouth her and say, they must be, contracepting is the word she used. They must be contracepting. They have to not be following the teachings of the church because there's no way they could be married this long and not have children. And I listened to the sadness and the I don't want to say hate, but it was ugly. The ugliness that was coming out of this woman's mouth. But I think the reason I recognize it as ugly is because that teacher had actually shared that with me.
Right.
And so I was like,
you knew the backstory.
Yeah, and I didn't say anything obviously, but I was a little angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is someone who loves her students so much, and every night she goes home thinking nothing other than she wants her own.
So, We watch a movie. It's a cult classic, and I'm kind of springing this on you. It's coming off of what you just said.
Okay.
You said you didn't say anything to her. It made me think about Boondock Saints.
Okay.
Follow along here.
Don't watch that with your kids.
Yeah, don't watch it with your kids. It's rated R and C-17. It's a lot of gore, a lot of... Anyways. There's a scene in there where a priest is giving a homily, and he talks about Kitty Genovese. You can look her up. She's real. She was beaten to death in the streets, and people just stood around and watched. This was before cell phones. This was in the early 1900s, maybe even 1800s. I gotta get the actual date. But Kitty Genovese, beaten to death by a man, murdered horrifically, and people just sat around and watched. That horrific thing, like, how can people just stand around? And it's prevalent. I mean, it's rampant now. I'm going to pull out my camera and videotape this instead of actually helping the person with a problem that's happening. All somebody has to do is say stop.
Yeah. And they're scared to say stop.
So, looking back on it, I'm going to put you on the spot. What would you have said to that teacher that was bad-mouthing the other one that didn't know her backstory?
Well, she wasn't a teacher. She was just a lady from the church.
Oh, okay.
I think I did the right thing.
By not saying anything?
Yeah, I think that knowing who I am and who I was in that moment, it would have come out as very ugly and vile, and I would have just matched her ugliness with
So what would you have said now to her?
I probably would have... asked her a question.
What would you ask?
Ask her, oh, she's contraceptive? What kind does she use? I think that's probably what I did. Something really, like, to put it back on her. And just say, how do you know that?
Right,
You know?
yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah. You know, it's just, I don't know what exactly, but that would be my goal would be just to ask her a question that would kind of flip her brain a little bit and realize that maybe she's looking at it at a different angle. I mean, there's... Yeah, if you only know one side of things, it's so hard to just make a judgment. But yeah, I mean, she was just being really ugly.
Yeah.
And then,
so something like fertility is different for everybody could have been a really simple thing to kind of just get her back on her heels.
My thing is, I think I probably would have not said anything again, because I think the reason I didn't say anything was because I felt like I would have been disrespecting the confidentiality. Because I knew that she had a fertility issue. So if I had said something about fertility issue, in my mind, I would have been breaking that confidentiality. So I think I probably wouldn't still. Yeah. But I don't think she'd probably have that power to kind of be in my face anymore. So I think, I don't think she would talk to me like that because I present myself differently now.
Right.
I'm not the young youth minister anymore. I am a seasoned father now, and I can look at her and just tell her shut up. I mean, honestly, I'd be like, I don't want to talk about somebody.
Fertility is different.
And that's probably where it'd be. It's like, that sounds a lot like gossip. Is probably what I would say. That sounds a lot like gossip.
How do you know this?
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. All you got to do when somebody makes a wild claim about somebody that they probably have never met or had a conversation with. How do you know?
So, yeah, there are Catholics that are single. There are Catholics that have lots of kids. There are Catholics that have one kid. It happens. Health things happen.
We had health issues.
Yep. It took us a long time to have them, and we're too old to have them now. So you never know what it is. And, you know, the sad thing is the people that have the 5 kids or the 8 kids may have still been doing all those contraception things that she was accusing this other woman of doing that never did it, because contraception fails all the time, you know?
Right,
so
right.
I know people that are like, yeah, I've used contraception and 3 kids. So
I know people who have had their tubes tied that have had kids.
So the numbers in the pews have nothing, the number of kids in the pews have nothing to do with the sacrament of the marriage and that act.
And God is a horrible mathematician.
You have to be open to life.
Yes.
Marriage or matrimony cannot exist if you're not open to life, which is why the church teaches that it has to be between a man and a woman. That's what we teach in this time right now, because it is the only way that it can be open to life. So however that manifests itself in the way people present themselves or how they describe themselves, there are very set laws within the church, and any person can still live within these laws within our church and be loved. So I would love to go into that more. You probably know that we're on YouTube and I can't.
And that's also much more of a personal journey question than it is a general statement that we make blanketly. I wrote these down earlier this morning, and then my daughter decided to sign them as well, so it's a little hard to read.
No, that's not so
but we're over to, those were the 3 questions that are given during Mass, or during the service. And then we move over to the vows after things have been blessed and other things happen. Do you want to take over?
Where am I reading from? From our scribble?
Yeah, from right over there. So the priest will do this in chunks, and it's usually from comma to comma, so you don't have a whole lot to have to repeat.
Okay, so we would both say this, so I'll just say it in my part, and I'll let Rachel do the next part, so we're not actually going through our vows again today. It might be an invitation to see us do it live, though. So I would be repeating after the priest as he helps me with this, so you don't have to remember it. I think we should have to memorize it. That should be a new thing that you memorize your vows before you do it. So that way, the priest has to memorize the consecration.
Yeah, and they get 8 years to work on it.
Yeah, they get that part of the consecration they have to memorize because they're never looking down at the book at that one spot. So I think we can memorize this. We should make that. Yeah, we should make that a thing.
Okay.
All right. Thumbs up if you think that should be a thing. So I, William, take you, Rachel, for my lawful wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. So what I get out of that is it doesn't say for better and worse. It doesn't say for better or worse. It says for better, for worse. So it's good. You see what I'm saying? The words, the words are different than what you see in TV shows.
Yes,
just slightly, just enough to make it different. You want to read it again? I mean, I said not to, but I mean it makes sense.
Okay.
Because read how
to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. Until death do us part.
Yeah, so all those things have to exist. You're going to be richer. You're going to be poorer. You're either going to be financially richer and financially poorer. You're going to be spiritually richer and spiritually poorer. You're going to be healthy. Your health's going to be rich. Your health's going to be poor. I tell people all the time.
And they're not going to happen at the same time either.
Right. And I used to tell people, being married doesn't mean that you're going to have to clean your spouse. Being married means that you're going to have to one day allow your spouse to clean you. And when I was in the wheelchair, I've said this before, when I was in the wheelchair, that was a very humbling experience when she had to clean me. I clean her all day long. That doesn't bother me. But the idea of
he said he would clean me. I clean myself still.
I love to clean. I mean,
he just spoke a little fast.
I did. If we were 85 years old and I had to sponge bath her, I would do it with joy, and it wouldn't be an issue. But marriage is allowing the person to do it to you, because being served is so much harder than serving someone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's setting aside all the walls that we build up to protect ourselves, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
After we both exchange vows, the priest blesses the rings and says, William, receive this ring as a sign of my love and fidelity, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So, fidelity. Let's talk about fidelity.
Like in the military, the Marines always talk about their motto is Semper Fidelis, which means always faithful. So, fidelity means faithfulness. It means even more than just the word faithful. In the military, if we use Latin, it means it's more important. I mean, in church it is too, but like in the
medical
military,
stuff.
the military, if Latin is used, it's important.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Latin gives the air of universality, I guess.
and it really is, because it belongs to the universal church. So, and I've mentioned it in other episodes, but the Catholic Church is still responsible for the Latin dictionary, which is why our scriptures, when they are updated, we have a record from every translation. So it's not like this translation just happened. We know why it happened. We've got the documents.
When, we know who did it.
Which pope said what. As a matter of fact, our Saint Study today, I'm going to mention a pope making a mistake.
All right. So that's just a little bit on matrimony.
A little bit. So let's talk about Saint Maximilian Kolbe.
Sure.
Okay, and the reason I'm bringing him up is because I took my son into the reliquary earlier to pray with him and to talk to him, because I knew I was going to be talking about him today. And he is the patron saint, or one of the saints that Tony, our friend from Catholic Beard Balm, really enjoys praying with his family. His story is amazing, and I learned today when I was reading, because I never noticed this, I didn't know this before, but Maximilian Kolbe was cremated, and he has first-class relics. A first-class relic is a body part, hair, or something like that. And the way they were able to get that was from his barbers, his Franciscan barbers. So there's hair. So we have some of his hair in the reliquary. I think that's kind of cool. It's gross, but kind of cool. But so I got to visit with Max. I'll call him Max because I talked to him actually a lot. He was a Franciscan friar during World War I and World War II. During World War II, when the Nazis were coming into Poland, he was taken into a concentration camp, Auschwitz. You guys know that one? It's the big one.
The big one.
Yeah, the big one. The prisoners were acting up, and they were trying to get control. So what the guards did was they said, we're going to take at random like 12 or so prisoners and throw them and starve them. Basically starve them to death. And that would be a way that they would scare the rest of the prisoners. So when they were grabbing these people randomly from the line, a man had, I wish I remembered his name, it's really hard to say, but it's really, look up Maximilian Kolbe, because there's so much that I'm not going to go over right now. But he shouted, "My wife, my kids." And Maximilian Kolbe, being a Catholic priest and a Franciscan friar, knew that the guards would value him more, because as a priest, throwing him would actually make the Jews, even the Jews, knowing that he was a holy man, would make it worse. Signal. It says in signal. So they said yes. So he did, and they put him down there, and they starved these guys to death. They feed them like water and things. I've read stories where he actually took grapes and just fermented them, and he was able to celebrate Mass in the concentration camp, not while he was starving to death. So the people died around him, and he constantly, the witnesses for his miracles, 3 finally survived. And when it was time for him to die, Maximilian Kolbe lifted his arm and said, "All right." And so they injected him, he died, and he was cremated. He was canonized. I can't remember the pope that canonized him, but they made him a martyr, but it wasn't a martyr because they didn't think he was truly martyred, because they decided that he wasn't killed because of his faith. He was just killed. So they made him a confessor of the faith martyr. So it was a designation that was a little different. So that's something I learned today. So please read on it, because there's a lot to it, and this isn't a complete study on him. But later on, Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II now, who lived in Poland at that time, said no, he's a martyr of the church, because the genocide of the Jews, all of that they wanted to hate on God. So the entire, basically said they were anti-God. Because they were anti-God, that made him a true martyr of God. So he was, again, elevated, but he's also known as a confessor of the church. Yeah. So he confessed with the power of his witness. Pretty snazzy beard, a lot nicer than mine. It came down to it right here. Like I said, Franciscan friar, and his barbers, the 2 Franciscan friar barbers, kept his hair, and that's what was collected and produced. I think there's over 1,000 relics that came from his hair, and we have one here. You can come and visit. So, and another shout out to Tony and Catholic Beer Bomb for sponsoring our channel. Don't forget to go and get your Catholic Beer Bomb promo code. Oblivious! So,
You want to tell the joke?
no, I don't know. Tell the joke again.
Why did the chicken go to the gym?
I don't know. Why did the chicken go to the gym?
To work on his pecs.
Until next time,
Work hard
be kind.
and have fun. God bless.